Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Economic Transformation Sustainability Conference, the first day. As we're done with the first technical session, we're going to move on to the second technical session, which is the digital transformation in financial services, which is going to be chaired by Dr. Mustafa Nurullah, who works as a researcher at the Center for Research and Economic Relations in Mid-Sweden University, where he teaches courses at undergrad level and the graduate level. Dr. Mustafa's main research interest is financial technology, which is fintech. Dr. Mustafa has published articles, reports, one book chapter, edited one book, awarded international recognitions and scholarships, and reviewed articles for index journals. He also managed a track on fintech in an international conference, and was invited to speak in public seminars and participated with international experts and panel discussions. Thank you very much, Dr. Mustafa, for being a part of this. It's also going to be chaired by a co-chair by Dr. Singh, who is an assistant professor at Modern College of Business and Science in Muscat, Oman. He possesses a rich professional experience for over 19 years in the field of finance, out of which 10 years is his post-PhD experience. He holds a PhD in finance, professional certifications such as Certified Financial Planner, CFP, Associate Diploma in Life Insurance from Insurance Institute of India, and CFA from ICFAI. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome the keynote speaker, Professor Peter Oman, who is going to give a keynote address on fintech solutions, digital payment methods, and robo-financial advisors. Now, let me just give a small introduction to the keynote speaker. Professor Oman is a professor of business administration and the head of subject in Mid-Sweden University. He is also the director of the Center for Research and Economic Relations. His research focuses on behavior issues, primarily in accounting and auditing, and also in the banking and property industries. He has published a significant number of scholarly articles in leading academic journals, including Contemporary Accounting Research, and received several literary awards. He is a member of the editorial advisory boards of behavioral research in accounting and International Journal of Housing Markets and Analysis, and also reviewer of several well-known international journals. He supervises several doctoral student projects as well. Professor Peter, please go ahead. Thank you very much for being a part of this. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. First of all, I would like to say that I am very honored to be part of this conference and the track Digital Transformation in the Financial Sector. As you can see here, I will talk about digital payment methods and robo-financial advisors. And I guess it might be time for some questions at the end. First of all, I have listed here what we are doing at our research center. And as you can see, we have focused on several industries. And today I will talk about banking, which means that we focus on fintech and digital payment methods and robo-financial advisors. I can also say that we are not particularly interested in the technical solutions, and we are not primarily interested in the bank perspective. Instead, we are doing most of our studies with a focus on the consumer perspective. And our most interest for us is the young customers or young investors in Sweden. But in some studies, we also compare this group of young adults with other groups of Swedish customers or investors. And in some cases, we also compare this kind of group with other young adults in other countries. And I will come back to all this when I present some of the studies. If we start here, we have witnessed an ongoing shift from human to human to human to machine relationships in the whole banking sector, we can say. And if we start with what we have witnessed regarding payments, we have seen a rather long story of activities that has happened during at least 50 or 60 years. We start with the telemachines and through telephone banking, internet banking, and mobile banking, and so on. And in Sweden, we have come far on this road. As you can see here, we have cash payments is about 5% of all payments in Sweden. Here it's very different from country to country. But if we see of the value of the payments, the numbers are even lower because we are mainly paying with cash when we buy cheap things. So I would say that in value it might be 2 or 3% of all payments that are made by cash. And as you also can see here, Sweden is considered to be potentially the first country to be a cashless society. And we have seen approximations here that this could happen already within 10 years or in 2030. What will happen is something that we might discuss if this is possible or not later on. If we focus on digital payments for young adults, this map can help us to see how the situation is during the world. And although this is a map some years ago, I would say that the pattern is very similar. And here the idea is that the blue dots that you can see here, they illustrate that very few young adults use digital payments. The yellow dots is the opposite. It illustrates that very many, the vast majority of all the young adults in a certain country use digital payments. And the green dots is in between. And if you see from different parts of the world, you can see in Europe, for instance, then we have a lot of yellow dots. And in those countries, as I said, many young adults use these digital payments. But there are also variation within Europe. So you can see green dots as well as blue dots as well. And then if you look at Africa, there are mostly blue dots, meaning that that part of the world has not come so far as the Northern Europe. And then you can see Asia, for instance, there are some yellow dots, a lot of green dots. And the Middle East, you can see there are many green dots. So this is kind of an illustration how far the world has come regarding digital payments among young adults. You can also be aware of that older people do not use digital payments as much as the young ones does. If we then continue this journey from human to human to human to machine, we can also focus on savings and investments. And here you can see a much shorter story than we had regarding digital payments. In this case, we, at least in Sweden and many places as well, we have mostly human financial advisors today as we have had before. However, we can see an issue here that can be raised, and this is whether the customers can trust that human advisors are helping the customers in the first place, or if they are more interested in focus on the bank or the bank's profit. And this may help the investors to go to robo-financial advisors. And that we also can see that if we don't trust the advice from the humans, can we then trust the advice from robo-financial advisors? Here, if we continue to look at the situation around the world regarding if you actually save money or not, you can see that this pattern is rather similar to what we see on the slide regarding digital payments, but it also differs in that it's more blue dots here and less yellow dots. And this means that the young adults have difficulties to start saving money, mainly due to low salaries and so on. And if we see different parts of the world, we have some yellow dots in Europe, but we also have a lot of blue dots in this case. In Africa, we have a lot of blue dots, and you can see in Asia, we have some, at least one yellow dot and green dots, and in the Middle East, you have green and blue dots. So here also the situation is rather different from country to country. What we are interested in here is that we can see this transition regarding payments, savings, and investments. But in the same time, we can see that customers and investors are used to ask questions, add comments, feel trust, and so on. And this is something that have been developed when you have this human contact with your bank employee or your advisor. So we can ask a number of questions here. And the first one is, how can benefits, or as we call them, barrier breakers, be transmitted to the machine-based environments? Because this has happened regarding human bank employees and human investors. And another question that we also can ask ourselves is, how can disadvantages, risks, or barriers be avoided? Because we know that if we have what we see as risks or barriers, it's more difficult to change from one way to act to another way to act. And here we can start with the risks that we can see, and this is not just for robo-financial advisors. It's as common when you have human advisors as well, but within investments, it's always a risk that you lose money, and it's always the same. And we also have this performance risk, meaning that the advisor can have insufficient knowledge and therefore giving us wrong advices. It might happen if it's a human, or it might happen if it's a machine. We have also these security and privacy risks that are visible in many cases, that you cannot reach your portfolio sometimes. And we also have what we call the social risks. And here is regarding what your peers or your family and your friends think and how they act. And sometimes it can be difficult to act in a different way than those people are acting. We have also listed a number of barriers, and this is in particular regarding digital payment methods. And then we can see two groups of barriers here. And the first one is what we call the functional barriers. It is issues like privacy, security, and access. Because if the way that you pay is not functional, then it's very difficult to use that payment methods. And we also have noticed the social psychological barriers, such as impersonalization and trust. And this is another way that can be difficult for people to handle if they see that this kind of barriers actually exist, and that will make it more difficult to use the digital payment methods as you otherwise could have done. And as I said, we are very interested in young bank customers and young retail investors. And this is because this will be the main part of the population in not so many years. And the banks are all very often focusing on this kind of customers or investors to see how they act and how they can match the way that these customers are interested in being treated. And one thing with this group is it much more interested in adopting new technologies than our older groups of customers. And they are, as any group here, at least in Sweden, they are ignored by human bank employees. Instead, they are encouraged to pay digitally anytime and everywhere. At least here in Sweden, we have declined, we have not so many branch offices for the banks anymore, and instead they are, as I said, encouraged to pay without visiting the bank. We can also see that human financial advisors, at least the ones with humble portfolios and humble investments experience, are ignored by these advisors and by the banks. And this might open up for other types of financial advisors, because robo-financial advisors, they accept people that don't have so much money to invest. And there are very few restrictions, as you can see here. And they can also do this, take help of the financial advisors at an affordable cost. And it's also in Sweden, at least, it's a very large discussion that it's important that you start to save money early in your life, so you can have this when you're getting older. And here is just an illustration of what I just said, that we can see that the old people, like myself, we are not so interested in switch to new financial service providers. But if you see the young adults here, 18 to 34 years old, they are much more interested in doing that, and actually are doing that kind of switch. So they are the most interesting group of customers for the banks and other service providers. And here we have one example when we compare various customer groups in Sweden. And to start with, we have these young bank customers that we categorize as adopters, acceptors. And this means that we see them as individuals who have adopted and are willing to continue to use digital payment methods. And on the other hand, we have what we call adopters, resistors. And those people, they have adopted digital payment methods, but they are used to resist innovations. And this doesn't mean that they are not using this kind of digital payment methods, but they think that it's very important that we have a variety of methods to use. And here in Sweden, we have such a group that's actually a formally organized group, which called Kontantupproret. It's something that we are against, that we not using cash anymore in Sweden. And this group consists mostly elderly bank customers, but they live in different locations and they have different incomes. And the main idea here is that they are eager to keep cash as a payment method. This does not mean that they use cash all the time, but they think that they should have this possibility to use cash when they wanted to do so. And here, I can also say that here I will come back to these two groups of customers later on. But before that, I will give you an example here that we have compared the Swedish young customers with young customers from Malaysia, and in this case, retail investors. And why we choose these two countries was that they are rather similar in one way. They are well developed regarding technological facilities, and they are, as I said, regarding Sweden, on their way towards a cashless society. They have stable bank industries, and they represent hubs of fintech solutions. So the infrastructure here is rather common in these two countries. However, we can also see cultural differences. And the most striking thing here, I guess, is that in Sweden, when this survey was done, more than half of the respondents agreed that most people can be trusted. But as you see here in Malaysia, the number are much, much lower. It's less than 10% that actually agree that most people can be trusted. And here is another slide saying the same thing here, that trust difference could be exemplified also when you're asking questions like if you trust your neighborhood or if you trust people you know personally. And as you can see here, the numbers are more than doubled in Sweden compared to Malaysia. And here you have another slide that can symbolize that both these countries have the necessary infrastructure for robo-financial advisors. And as you can see here, this slide, the increased amount of assets under robo-financial advisors, particularly in Sweden. And when studying these young retail investors in these two countries, we found that none of the risk under study, financial risk, performance risk, security and privacy risk, and social risks, are related to initial trust in these kind of advisors. And we also, instead I can say, we found that higher information availability, the higher initial trust, and as a result, individuals will likely have higher intention to use robo-financial advisors. And then if we see it like this, then we can say that information is a barrier breaker here, and this will affect the initial trust and also the behavior intention to use these robo-financial advisors. And we can also see that these customers, although they are young retail investors, they are different in the decision style. And we found that some are very rational when making their decisions, investment decisions, and some are more intuitive. And this must also be handled if you are going to be a successful robo-financial advisor, or is a bank that have this kind of robo-financial advisors. And here we can see some paradox. We think that most of the banks, they try to find a one-size-fits-all approach or solution. And our results indicate that this is not the best way to do it, because we have these differences in decision styles. Regarding these similarities between Sweden and Malaysia here, we have at least one possible explanation. And this is that we think that similar lifestyles lead to similar results. And that we can see regarding that none of the risk was related to this initial trust in robo-financial advisors. But we find one interesting difference between the retail investors in these two countries. And it is regarding the relationship between initial trust and the behavioral intention to use these kind of advisors. And then we can see a much stronger connection here among the robo-financial, to adopt robo-financial advisors in Malaysia. And here we think first it was very curious because we think that due to the general higher trust level in Sweden, the results would be the other way around. But here we think that the pandemic here could have helped the Malaysians to be more interested in these robo-financial advisors because the restrictions that were during the pandemic. Okay, if we compare various group of bank customers in Sweden regarding digital payment methods, we found what you can see here for the first group, that only 4% of the young bank customers, they use cash as a common payment method, meaning what I said before, that it's a huge majority that use digital payment methods. We also find that two of the functional barriers here, privacy and access, are negatively related to full adoption of digital payment methods. However, neither security nor trust or implementation are perceived an issue here for this group of customers. So what can be done here is that the banks could take actions to solve current and future problems in the functionality field here. Because if these barriers are taken care of, then it's possible to increase the number of digital payment methods. And another question we was asked the customers here is whether the ease of use, usefulness, social influence, or credibility barrier breakers could affect the use of digital payment methods. And here for this group, we saw that the only barrier breaker that can help is credibility. None of the other ones was perceived as helpful. And also in this case, we can see that if actions can be taken so they are perceived as credible, then it might also help the customers to increase the use of digital payment methods. But here we also see a rather funny thing actually, because if the functional issues are perceived as barriers, as we saw on the last slide, here we can see that the credibility is perceived as a barrier breaker. And here the banks, in this case, or the service providers, they must take into account both the barriers and both the barrier breakers if this development will be going on, so that these customers use digital payments more often. Finally, then, we have a couple of slides related to adopters or sisters. This is the other group, not the young bank customers, or instead this group that are eager to keep cash. And here you can see a huge difference. For the former group, it was just 4% that use cash as a common payment method, but here over 80% think that cash can be useful in many when they buy many things. And here you see another huge difference, that in this case, impersonalization is the only barrier negatively related to full adoption of these payment methods. All the other barriers are not perceived related to start using this kind of payment methods more often. And in this case, the banks or the financial service providers, they must take care of this social psychological field and, as we suggest, then offer multiple payment channels. Otherwise, it will be difficult to to catch this group and make them more interested in the digital payment system. We asked the same question to this group of customers regarding if ease of use, usefulness, social influence, credibility barrier breakers could affect the use of digital payment methods. And here you see, once again, a different pattern for this group of customers compared to the young bank customers. And in this case, most of the barrier breakers could help, but not ease of use. And in this case, it's very beneficial for the banks to take action for a varied set of barrier breakers. And once again, we can see that this is in contrast to the one-size-fits-all approach that the banks often use. And this can also be, as I said, for the former group of customers, that it is one thing that you can see as a barrier and another thing that you can see as a barrier breakers. And this is also something to taken care of for the banks and the service providers. And then I think I have come to the end of this presentation, and maybe it is some time for questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Peter, for the informative speech and presentation with regards to fintech solutions. Sorry, Dr. Mustafa, you wanted to say something? They cut you off.
Yeah, thank you. I would like also to thank Professor Rahman for highlighting these figures and statistics. I guess it's important to know how situation look like regarding like payments and savings, especially in this phase when the world trying to recover from the pandemic. What I would like to say that regarding this track going forward about how the transformation happens, especially in financial service, it's probably the first time that we witness how not only the private sector but also the governmental agencies. We know that several central banks are carrying projects for issuing their electronic or like digital version of their currency. So a lot of interesting ideas, and I'm glad that today we will listen to 6 papers on these topics. And as you know, we will have each presenter will get roughly about 12 minutes. And then after this, we will run a discussion in 3 up to 4 minutes. So let me then, if we can start the first paper, I guess. Right, dear Ahmed?
Yes, we'll start the first paper. The first paper is titled "The Role of Electronic Accounting Information Systems in Measuring Credit Risk in National Bank of Oman." This is going to be presented by Dr. Maria Teresa from Middle East College in Muscat, Oman. Dr. Maria, please go ahead.
Yes, I have presenter, right?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Yes, so my screen is visible, my slides.
Not yet.
Wait, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Wait. Okay, so is it okay?
Yes, now we can see.
Okay,
yes.
so I'll just have it in this format. Okay, so I'm presenting. So I'm presenting, it's a role of electronic accounting information system in measuring credit risk in national bank. So the research aims at looking at the effect of this credit risk policy of the bank, in the financial situation, of course. Not only actually for the side actually covers not only one branch but all the branches of the MBO. So it was actually part of the project of the students. So it may have noticed that banking problems were a common denominator in the majority of countries that face financial and economic crisis. The growth in banking risks, especially those arising from the credit, according to experts, is responsible for this development. So many experts, researchers have emphasized that getting involved in the problem of mortgage obligations, which resulted from ignoring basic risk management principles such as caution and concern for this availability of credit worthiness as a prerequisite for lending, is the main reason for this current situation. Okay, so for this study, so the following research objectives were outlined. So initially, the electronic accounting information system constructor identified, and of course, they identified also the credit risk. Okay, for this e-accounting system. Analyzing the measurement of the credit risk in the bank, and finally recommend policy proposals to enhance this credit risk assessment. And of course, literature has been reviewed. So a methodology. Okay, for this study, so we applied the exploratory research, descriptive exploratory research approach. Exploratory as a study explore on banks' problems of credit risk to improve insights into and comprehension for more precise investigation. Problem was defined, alternative courses of actions were identified. So there were surveys, interviews. Both the qualitative and quantitative research approach were employed. Okay, and then who are those in that constitute the population of the study? So the finance and accounts department of the banks. Okay, from all the branches. So coming up with a total of 210 employees. And then actually from here, the sampling size were arrived at 137. Okay, so from 137, so we flowed the questionnaires, and at the average, we were able to retrieve around 70% of those 137, which is still okay. Samples were taken randomly from each group of persons employed in the company's financial administration, as I mentioned earlier. So the managers, supervisors, those actually who has direct exposure to this credit risk responsibility as well as decision making. So yeah, managers, specialists, and the financial professionals of the bank. Okay, now as part of ensuring its validity and suitability for the study subject matter, we shared so me actually the students, okay, share the specific of the research tools with research supervisor, okay, and yeah, to check for this validity of the questionnaire. Okay, okay, so on data analysis, actually, we applied, we have a descriptive statistics, we have a frequency distribution, and we applied as well the correlation and then the regression analysis. Okay, now briefly, so I just would like to share this feedback as results of the interviews with those the managers and assistant managers of the company. So they say that the bank monitors and regulates credit risk by establishing internal risk limits, okay, for people and organizations in accordance with the Central Bank of Oman rules. The risk structure, as outlined in the risk chapter, was authorized by the members of the board of the bank